Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to look at the concept of protozoa and its phyla. And don't forget to subscribe and YouTube and join my YouTube channel. So, what is protozoa? Protozoa are single-cell eukaryotic organisms that are primarily found in aquatic environment. So, you see, from this introduction, there are three important points that we need to get. One, first, they are single celled. It means that they have only one cell. They are organisms that have one cell, meaning that they are unicellular. And then they are eukaryotic, meaning that they are, despite the fact that they have one cell, it means that they are eukaryotic. And when we say organisms are eukaryotic, it means that they are organisms that have nucleus. It means that they have nucleus in them. They have nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. So it means that protozoa, they have nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. So they are single-cell eukaryotic, meaning that they have one cell, and also they are eukaryotic, meaning that they have nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. And also, in addition, they are eukaryotic, or they are found in aquatic environment, meaning that they are found in water. They are found in water. And then, in addition, they are very simple and primitive. They are very simple organisms, and they are very primitive. So this thing is very important. One, you should understand that they are very simple unicellular organisms, because the single cell meant they are unicellular and they are eukaryotic, and then in addition, they are very simple and primitive. So you see, then more importantly, these organisms, they are actually exhibit a diverse forms of locomotion. So they have different ways that they can locomote. That is how they can move from one point to another. And they use different organelles. There are some that use flagella to move, some use cilia, and some use pseudopodia. So as we are doing the lectures, we are going to see how some of these organisms use different of these organelles for their movement, that is locomotion from one point to another. So more importantly, as we said, they are usually aquatic. They are aquatic. They are found in aquatic environment like sea, fresh water, and body fluids. Some of them you can find them in blood, like Plasmodium and Separum. Trypanosome is an example of the protozoa that can found in body fluid like blood. Plasmodium is also an example of the protozoa that is found in blood. Exoplasma also, it is found in blood. But Primitium, Igulina, and Amoeba, they can found in fresh and sea water. And one very important thing that we should understand with this protozoa, they are animal-like organisms. They are animal-like organisms, so they look like animals. So this is a good introduction, ladies and gentlemen. One, protozoa, they are a single-cell organism, meaning that they have one cell, and they are eukaryotic, meaning that their cell contain nucleus and membrane-bound organelles, and they are animal-like organisms. They are animal-like organisms. It means they look like more of animal, and they are also found in aquatic environment. The aquatic environment can be body fluid like blood, sperm, fresh water, and sea. And they are very simple and primitive, and they use diverse forms of locomotion. They use different organs for them to move. And these protozoa play a crucial role in ecosystem, serving as both predators and prey in food webs. So you see, these protozoans, they can be a predators, meaning that they can feed on other organisms, and they can be a prey, meaning that other organisms can feed on them. So it means that they can serve as predators and prey. They can feed on someone, and so they can feed on other organisms, and other organisms can feed on them in food webs. That is the complex feeding relationship. So that is actually a brief introduction of these protozoa, and very importantly, these protozoa, they are at the protoplasmic level of organization, meaning that they are specialized. That is specialized portion of the cytoplasm called organelles carrying out particular functions within single cell. So one very important thing that I wanted to say here, ladies and gentlemen, with this protozoa, they are at a level of protoplasmic level. So you know that actually cells have different compartments. The cell is made of protoplasm and nucleus. So the protoplasm includes the cytoplasm and the organelles of the cell. So therefore, the protozoans, they are at the protoplasmic level of organization of life. So that is actually a brief introduction of this protozoa. So don't forget, they are single cell, they are eukaryotic, they are simple and primitive. They use diverse forms of organelles for their locomotion, and they can serve as a predators and prey, and they can also found in aquatic environment like fresh water, body fluids, and sea. So then the next thing that we are going to look at is the classification of the protozoa. So protozoa are categorized into different phyla based on their environment and reproductive strategies. So generally, living organisms in biology are classified on different bases. So here, protozoan are classified based on their movement and their reproductive strategies. And this classification of or this phyla of protozoans, we have four here. We have four major groups of these protozoans, starting with Rhizophoda, Apicomplexa, Sarcomastigophora, and Ciliophora. So these are the four major groups, or the four major phyla of protozoa. So understanding their classification helps in studying their biology and ecosystem. So ladies and gentlemen, now you have a brief introduction of what protozoans are. They are single cell, they are eukaryotic, they are simple, they are primitive, they are found in aquatic environment like body fluids. Examples of organisms that are found in body fluid, we have Plasmodium falciparum, we have Toxoplasma gondii, we have Trypanosome. So understanding now their classification is important, and these organisms are classified based on their movement and reproductive strategies, starting with Rhizophoda, Apicomplexa, Sarcomastigophora, and Cilia. So then let's start with the overview of the Rhizophoda. So what is Rhizophoda? Rhizophoda are known as amoeboids. They are known as amoeboids. They are characterized by use of pseudopodia for movement and feeding. So therefore, for this Rhizophoda, the first thing that you need to understand is that, as I said, these protozoans are classified based on their movement and reproductive strategies. So here, the Rhizophoda use pseudopodia for their movement and feeding. So that is the first important point that we should understand. And then one also very important thing is that this Rhizophoda, they lack what we call chromatophores. They lack chromatophores. They lack chromatophores. So when you said chromo, from the word chromato, it means color. So they lack coloring agents that actually make them to uh, undergo photosynthesis. So they lack chromatophores. It means that they doesn't have the chromatophores in them. And very importantly, these rhizopoda, they are found in various habitats. You can actually find them in fresh water. You can find them in marine environments. You can also find them in soil. So these are actually different environments where you can get this rhizopoda. So one, they lack chromatophores. They are known as amoeboids because they use Ciliophora for their movement, that is for their locomotion. And then the next thing after this is that this Rhizophoda have single nucleus. It's just single nucleus. That is, they have one nucleus. They have single nucleus. So you shouldn't forget these very important points too. And then examples of the organisms that are under this rhizopoda, we have amoeba and intermoeba. So we have intermoeba, and then we have amoeba, we have arcella. So these are the examples of organisms that are found in rhizopoda. Examples of them, we have intermoeba, which is which is actually known as histolytica, which are important pathogens in humans. So they are one of the important pathogens that cause disease in human. And another examples of rhizopoda apart from entamoeba, amoeba is also part of it. So this is actually the most important thing that you should know under rhizopoda. First, pseudopoda for movement and feeding. They are found in aquatic environment. They have single cell and they also lack chromatophores, that is coloring agents. So then the next thing, ladies and gentlemen, that we are going to look at is Apicomplexa. So Apicomplexa, Apicomplexa, they are a group of protozoa known for their specialized or known for their complex life cycles. So they have a very complex life cycles and specialized organelles for host evasion. So that's why they are even called Apicomplexa. They are called Apicomplexa because they have apical complex, which they use that specialized apical complex for host evasion. So when you said host invasion, it means how some of these parasites or apicomplexa try to embed into the host cells. Like for example, red blood cell. Examples of the apicomplexa is we have plasmodium. We have plasmodium, that is the parasite. So this plasmodium parasite, they have apical complex, which aid or which help the plasmodium falciparum to penetrate into our red blood cells. And that is what we mean with host invasion. That is, they use the apical complex to get into our cells. So they have an apical complex, and it is this apical complex that they use to get into the host cell. Like for example, when mosquito bite us, generally the Plasmodium falciparum can get into our red blood cells, it can get into our liver cells. So they all get into our cells by the use of their specialized organelles called apical complex. And then more importantly, this apicomplexa is not like that of Rhizopoda, where they use pseudophodia for movement. So in the case of the phylum Apical complexa, they lack external locomotory organelles. They lack external locomotory organelles. So they therefore characterized by reproductive process rather than their locomotory organelles as in other groups. So you see, as I said, the apical complex or the protozoa in general, we classify them based on their movement. and their their movement and their reproduction, or their mode of reproduction. So rather, actually, in the case of apical complex, because they lack locomotory organs, so we classify them, or we characterize them based on their mode of reproduction. That is on how they reproduce. So, how these organisms reproduce. So these organisms, they actually reproduce both sexually and asexual. They produce sexually, they reproduce sexually, and they reproduce sexually and asexually. They produce sexually and asexual. So this is one very interesting, that is one of the very interesting things that we should understand. Apical complex are the locomotory organs. They doesn't use flagella, they doesn't use pseudopoda for movement. So that is why they are only characterized based on their mode of reproduction, and they reproduce both sexually and asexual. So this is one of their most distinctive characters. So, and then importantly, I have been saying Plasmodium falciparum. So what this Plasmodium falciparum? So the Plasmodium falciparum, there are primarily parasitic. So generally apical complex they are parasitic in nature, and examples they include a significant pathogen such as plasmodium, which causes malaria. So plasmodium, it is the examples of the apical complex, and it is a pathogenic. It causes malaria in humans. And we have many of the species of this plasmodium. We have Plasmodium falciparum, we have Plasmodium vivax, we have Plasmodium knowlesi, we have Plasmodium malariae, ovaliae, vivax, falciparum. All of them are the different species of Plasmodium that cause malaria. But the most prevalent one, especially the species of the Plasmodium that cause malaria in Africa, like Nigeria, is Plasmodium falciparum. So it's Plasmodium falciparum. Plasmodium falciparum. So that is actually one of the examples of the most prevalent species of apical complexa that cause malaria. And they are economically important in causing so many diseases. They cause so many diseases in humans. Another examples of this apical complexa, we have Toxoplasma gondii. So Toxoplasma gondii is an examples of the apical complexa that cause toxoplasmosis. And we also have trypanosome. So under trypanosome, there are also many species like trypanosome brucei, trypanosome congolensis are examples of the species of trypanosome that cause diseases. So more importantly, these apical complexa will have life cycles often involve multiple hosts, complicating control and treatment strategies. So some of these species of organisms that fall under apical complexa phylum, they involve multiple hosts. You can see that like like Plasmodium uses both mosquito and humans as their host. And as a result of that, because they use multiple hosts, that actually make them to be very complicated in terms of their treatment, in terms of the disease elimination, in terms of the development of new strategies and method for the control of the diseases that they cause in humans. That is why up to this time around, it become very difficult. It becomes very difficult to control malaria, because they are using multiple hosts. Like the malaria parasite uses mosquito and humans as a host. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think without wasting much of my time, I think I have actually talked about more, or I have actually talked more on this apical complex. So then the next thing is the life cycle of the apical complex, although I'm not going to waste too much time here. So the life cycle of apical complexa typically includes, as I said, remember that they include both sexual and asexual mode of reproduction. You see, they include both sexual and asexual mode of reproduction. So mosquito is served as a vectors. So when we said vectors, it means any organism that actually transmit parasite from one organism to another. So mosquito serve as a vector for plasmodium. So it's a vector that actually carry plasmodium from one organism to another, illustrating the importance of vector control in disease management. So this or in disease prevention. So it means that since mosquito is served as a vector, so getting a strategy that you can actually use to kill mosquito can serve as a vector control strategy in order to prevent the disease spread. So then the next one is actually understanding their life cycle is essential for developing effective treatment and vaccine. So that is why most of the drug or most of the scientists that are really trying to develop drugs, they are either targeting a vector or targeting the parasite in humans. So that is why, so if we are able to understand the life cycles of this parasite, it will be very, very important in assisting scientists to develop effective treatment and vaccine. So you see, this is actually how some of the life cycles of this parasite looks like the plasmodium. It can actually survive at the blood stage. It can also survive in at mosquito stage. You see, to at the mosquito stage, you can have the egg. The egg of the parasite, which is the Plasmodium falciparum, is the gametocyte, that is the egg, while the sporozoite is actually the form in which the parasite or in which the mosquito injects into uh, the bloodstream of the hosts, which later develop into merozoite, and the merozoite will now penetrate into red blood cells, develop into schizoid, and then continue to develop into trophozoite. So this is actually a brief description of the life cycle of the apical complex. So then the next thing that we are going to look at is, of course, the another phylum, which is Sarcomastigophora. Another phylum is Sarcomastigophora. That is what we are going to look at as next. So what is Sarcomastigophora? So Sarcomastigophora is a diverse group that includes flagellates and amoeboids characterized by mortality via flagella or pseudopodia. So you see, rhizophoda, they can actually use pseudopoda for movement. Apical complexa, it is not characterized based on movement because they lack locomotory organs, but they are best characterized based on their mode of reproduction, which is sexual and asexual. And more importantly, remember that I told you that as I said, actually, the rhizopoda, the lack chromatopause. But in the case of Sarcomastigophora, they have or they possess chromatopause, while others do not. So chromatopause, as I said, is like a cup-shaped masses of protoplasm of a green, yellow, or brownish color due to the presence of pigment, chlorophyll, xanthophyls, and carotene. So you see, in the case of Sarcomastigophora, they have chromatophores, and this chromatophores is important, or is actually very important, that make the organisms or the Sarcomastigophora to have color. And examples of the colors, it can be green, yellow, and others. And this is what makes them to be able to undergo photosynthesis. So you should understand that the Sarcomastigophora, they have uh, chromatophores. And some members of this Sarcomastigophora, they are living, sorry, they are free living, while others are parasitic. So when you said free living, meaning that they can survive on their own, while others, they are parasitic. So they affect both humans and animals, meaning that they cause disease in other organisms. So examples of this Sarcomastigophora, we have Giardia, Giardia, we have, Giardia lambia, which is a parasite causing gastrointestinal disorders in humans. So they are parasites, but they cause gastrointestinal disorders in humans. And very importantly, this Sarcomastigophora, their cell is covered by a follicle, and this follicle is semi-rigid, and they have a definite shape. They have a specific shape. They have a defined shape. Adults use flagella as a means of locomotion. So as I said, their adult can use flagella or pseudopodia for their movement. And they usually also, they possess single nucleus. They have only one nucleus. They have one nucleus. So that is why it means they have single nucleus. And then in addition, they reproduce asexually by binary fission. So they use binary fission. So you see, what is the difference between Sarcomastigophora and Apicomplexa? The Sarcomastigophora, they use only binary fission as a mode of their reproduction. That is, they reproduce asexually. They reproduce sexually. So that is actually brief on this Sarcomastigophora. But very importantly, this Sarcomastigophora, they are divided into two. We have two major classes of this Sarcomastigophora. So number one, we have Phytomastigophora. Phyto. We have Phyto. We have Phytomastigophora. Phytomastigophora. So the word phyto means plant-like. Plant-like. It means that they look like plants. So because they are called Phytomastigophora, they look like plants because they actually possess chlorophyll. That is why they are called Phytomastigophora, because they have chlorophyll, meaning that they can undergo photosynthesis. They can undergo photosynthesis. So that is why they are called Phytomastigophora. And examples of this Phytomastigophora, we have Volvox, we have Volvox, we have Volvox, we have Volvox. That is one of the examples of this. We have Igulina. Igulina is under this. We have Igulina. Igulina is under Phytomastigophora. And then we have Chlamydomonas. So Volvox, Igulina, and Chlamydomonas, they all have chlorophyll and they can undergo photosynthesis. That is why they fall under Phytomastigophora. So the word phyto means plant. Then the next thing after this, we have Zoomastigophora. The first one is Phytomastigophora, and then the second one is Zoomastigophora. Zoomastigophora. That is what I wanted us to understand. So Zoomastigophora and Phytomastigophora. So for the Zoomastigophora, it means that they are animal-like. That is why they are called zoo, and they lack chromatopause. So since they lack chromatopause, it means that they cannot undergo photosynthesis, and they can also, very few of them can undergo sexual reproduction, and some of this class, they are parasitic. So some of them, they are parasitic, and they use flagella for movement. They use flagella for movement in the case of Zoomastigophora. So they can move from one point to another. They are parasitic. They are animal-like. They lack chromatophores. And as a result of that, they can undergo Holozoic mode of nutrition, meaning that they can depend on other organisms to get their own food. And that is why, because they are animals like, they don't undergo photosynthesis, so that is why they can cause disease to other organisms. And that is why they are parasitic. So what are the importance of this Sarcomastigophora? So Sarcomastigophora plays important or plays significant ecological roles contributing to nutrient cycling and energy flow in ecosystem. So they actually help. They are very important in nutrient cycling, that is maintenance of nutrients within the ecosystem, like nitrogen, carbon, and the rest. So the parasitic forms can have severe impact on humans and animal health. So the parasitic ones among the Sarcomastigophora, they can cause disease in humans and animals, so leading to economic losses. So studying this group is critical for understanding disease dynamics and developing intervention. So then the last one is Ciliophora. So what is Ciliophora? So the Ciliophora is the last phyla that we are going to look at under the Ciliophora. They are characterized by their use of cilia for movement and feeding. So Ciliophora, that is why they ask the word Ciliophora. So they have cilia, and they use this cilia for movement and feeding, so making them one of the most complex protozoan groups. They are one of the most complex. They are the largest phyla of the protozoans, and they exhibit high level of organelle development. They have a very high level of organelle development, and very importantly, they are predominantly found in aquatic environments. So most of them, they are predominantly found in aquatic environment and can exhibit a range. They can exhibit a range of feeding strategies. A range of feeding strategy. So these organisms here, they have a constant body shape due to the presence of a film follicles covering the body. So because they have follicle, and this follicle is a very thin, organelle that help cover the entire organisms, and that is why their shape remain constant. So they have follicle. That is what make them to have their constant shape. And very importantly, the members of Ciliophora, they have or they possess two nuclei. They have meganucleus, nucleus. They have nucleus, and this meganucleus control the cell activity. So it control cell activities except reproduction. And then the next one is micronucleus. So the major functions of micronucleus in Ciliophora, it aid for reproduction, for sexual reproduction. That is the work of micronucleus. That is the work of micronucleus. They aid in reproduction, while meganucleus, it aid in every activities of the cells except reproduction. So the asexual reproduction is usually by transverse fission, while sexual reproduction is by conjugation. So they can undergo both sexual and asexual reproduction. They can undergo both sexual and asexual reproduction. So for the sexual reproduction of this Ciliophora, they undergo conjugation. Conjugation. So conjugation is for sexual reproduction of the Ciliophora, while transverse fission is for asexual. Transverse fission is for asexual mode of transverse fission is for asexual mode of reproduction. So this example of this Ciliophora, we have Primitium. So Primitium is a well-known example of Ciliophora and is often used in biological studies. So this is actually a brief description of the Ciliophora, ladies and gentlemen. So the next thing is, what are the ecological importance and medical significance of Ciliophora? So Ciliophora contribute to microbial food web and plays important role in the composition of organic matter. And some species can also be indicators of environmental health and water quality, while generally non-pathogenic. Certain ciliate can cause disease in fish and other aquatic organisms. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can now tell you this is Protozoa and the phylum under Protozoa. And I hope this video will be very clear and interesting to all of you. And if this is the first time you come to my YouTube channel, please try to subscribe and join the YouTube community. And bye bye. See you in my next video.